Wann waren Sie das letzte Mal von totaler Stille umgeben? Bei einem Spaziergang durch den Wald oder eher Sonntagmorgen im Bett, als die ganze Familie noch schlief? Mal ehrlich, diese Momente sind doch sehr kostbar, oder? Man kann nicht behaupten, dass wir heute in einer besonders ruhigen Zeit leben. Wir sind tagtäglich von Geräuschen und Lärm umgeben. Der Rechner läuft, der Fernseher ist ständig an und wir hören schon morgens Radio im Bad, während wir noch die Zähne putzen. Es ist schwer, so richtig zur Ruhe zu kommen und Zeiten der Stille zu haben. Zeiten, wo nicht gesprochen, sondern einfach nur gehört wird. Herzlich willkommen, liebe Zuschauer, zu Nachgefragt. Bei mir ist Carlos Martínez. Er ist Pantomime und eines seiner Lieblingsthemen ist die Stille. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you.
Great that you're here in the interview. Carlos, I want to start with a quote from your friend and colleague Andreas Malessa. He said about you, you are a person of silence. Do you see yourself like that?
Well, I am not speaking as much as Andreas Malessa. He's a master of words. But I also love to speak. I am a speaking person, spoken person. I remember even when I was a child, my father told me many times, Carlos, shut up. I was speaking a lot. I discovered the power of silence through the art of mime. When I started to do mime, I realized that silence can be also a way of speaking. But before discovering mime, I was really a person always speaking. I think sometimes even more than Andreas Malessa.
But you say you learn to talk in silence and without words, so how is it possible?
For me it was very strange to realize that it's possible to say something in silence. But the art of mime showed me this possibility. It's possible that the people understand that I can say something without words. Normally, when we speak a language, the people have to understand the language in order to understand me. But when I do mime, when I just do gestures, the people know these gestures. The people know what I mean, although they never learn pantomime, they never learn mime. So it's a really powerful tool in our hands, in our body, that we can say many things. I have to think many times when I go to other country or when I see tourists in other countries. Sometimes they don't know the words, they don't know how to tell the things, and then they use the hands and the feet and the face. And in that moment, they are communicating without words. And it doesn't matter which country they are, which language they speak, even the culture. So it's possible to communicate without words.
So is there a difference between language and communication? Can you say that?
I think communication is the goal of the language. So when you speak, it's because you want to say something. It's the same with silence. I use silence because I want to communicate. So the goal is the communication. Sometimes the words can say many things, but sometimes silence can say even more than words.
How?
It's interesting, for example, when you ask a question to somebody, like you are doing to me, there is a moment of thinking. Normally we don't answer immediately after the question. We have to think. And while you are thinking, you are not speaking. This silence, the silence of the thoughts, the silence of the words that are being created, the silence of the feelings, the thoughts, this silence is also speaking. I like to listen to this silence. I like to see people, for example, when they are eating in a restaurant. I don't hear what they say, but I can observe them from the distance. And many times I can guess what they are saying, what they are talking. So silence is a way of saying many things, because when you are observing people, when you are observing the gestures, the movements, you translate these into your own words.
But is it silent then? So when you watch how people sit in the cafe and talking and you don't understand, I mean, it's not totally calm then.
When I say watching people in the restaurant, I am always thinking when I am far away, or even when I am outside of the restaurant, that there is a glass and I cannot hear anything. It's like in a train station when you say goodbye to somebody inside of the train. You don't hear, but you can see. You can communicate even without words. There are many moments that you don't hear, but you can still understand.
So is it also possible to have silence within a lot of people? So when you sit by yourself in a cafe or while walking through the forest, I mean, there is noise, there are birds and the wind and so on. Is it possible?
Yes, when I talk about silence, I'm not talking about the silence in the sense that you don't hear anything. I'm talking about the silence that has to be or to do with words. I'm not using words to tell something. But it doesn't mean that I'm not making a noise or I'm not making a sound. For example, when you hear music, for me, music is a way of speaking without words as well. It's also another way of speaking in silence, if you want. But in my case, as a mime, I'm not using words, but I'm not using music. I don't sing. I don't make sounds normally. And still the people can see. This is for me perhaps the most interesting thing. It's not just that there is silence, but the silence can speak. The gestures can speak. To hear a radio that is not working, there is silence, but the radio cannot say anything. But when you are listening to the radio and suddenly there is a little silence, this silence is speaking. So I love this kind of silence between words, silence that are connected with gestures, silence that is connected with attitude, with thinking, with feeling. I love that silence.
And the silence you also give to other people. You give classes for businessmen and doctors and pastors. Do these people talk too much in their jobs?
Yeah, this is one of the things that the pastors, I was recently giving a workshop for theologians in Switzerland, and they told me we are trained to speak, and sometimes we don't realize how important is the silence. So I try to teach them how important is the silence, for example, in the Bible. There are many moments, even Jesus was many times in silence, and I think the people were understanding the meaning of that silence. So I try to tell these theologians, these pastors, that it's possible to say also important things without words. And we do a kind of walking through the Bible and to enjoy the silence in the Bible, the silence of many important people that were able to speak, and suddenly they started to discover the silence. I think that at least it's a good training for them, especially for pastors and theologians, a good training to realize that just the fact that you are moving the hands, just the fact that you are in front of your audience, you are already speaking. It's not that you speak or you tell something as soon as you start using the words. You are already speaking as soon as you are in front of them.
So you cannot hide.
No, it's otherwise. Why not to read the message? You know, why not to read the preaching? Once I was in a church, visiting a church, and the pastor couldn't come, so he sent the message via fax, or I don't know. It was a long time ago, and somebody from the church was reading the message, and it is not the same. The words were the words of the pastor, but the pastor was not there. So the presence, the fact that he is there, his way of speaking, his way of moving, his way of thinking, his silences, are also part of the message, are also part of the speaking.
I want to come back to the Bible. You mentioned the Bible, and when you think about God, and the Bible, it's often said that you need silence to listen to God. So that silence is a career for the words of God somehow. Is it true?
I like to say that silence is an angel from heaven that wants to talk to us, but we don't allow him. I think silence can say many things, and it's interesting that when you are in a football stadium and somebody says, and now let's make a minute of silence. Normally I check the time, and normally it's about 15 or 20 seconds. It's so difficult to let the silence speak. We are trained to listen more than to watch. And I think God is able to talk through the silence. I don't think that God is a God of silence, is a God of words, but He knows how to use the word in silence as well. In fact, this is what I do as a mime. I am not just silent. What I do is I take so many words, so many things I want to say, and I change all these words into my way of speaking, into my silence. But behind my silence, there are many words.
So you transfer them to your play.
Exactly. I change my words into other way of speaking. For me, silence, in the hands of a mime, the silence is also a language. And I think when we listen the silence of somebody, we can understand many more the words that will come afterwards. This is why many times we think that God is only speaking through the word. And I believe that God is also a master of silence. He knows how to talk to us in silence and through the silence. Some people are afraid of silence. Silence is connected with death. When somebody died, then there is silence. And this is why the people are afraid of God, because God is not speaking. God is in silence. And sometimes I say, God is able to speak in silence. Perhaps God is doing mime, I don't know. But it's possible to feel, to listen what is in the silence. And even when you are in love, when you meet your wife or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, there are many moments of silence. They don't need to speak to communicate many things. They understand each other. They know how much they love each other.
But normally it's quite hard to stay in silence, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Nowadays we are not able to cope longer times of silence.
Yeah, the people are afraid of silence. That's right. The people need words, need sound. I like to say silence is like water. Every time there is less. So it's getting less and less silence in this world and less water in this world. Perhaps this helps us to appreciate the silence much more. I think when I have a relationship with somebody, with my son, many times we have a lot of silent conversations.
How do they look like?
We just look into each other. I just have to look at him and I know what he's thinking, and vice versa. And I think in the families and in many moments of life, you don't need to speak to understand each other. When you see a child sleeping, there are no words. It's a complete silence. And it's so nice to see that child sleeping there. It's a silent moment for the whole family, for the parents.
So you can have silence not in like sceneries, what you arrange, but in daily life.
In daily life, I don't think that silence belongs to the mimes. The mime actors, we just take silence from life, and with this silence we create a piece of art. But silence belongs to the human being, belongs to nature. Look at the stars, look at life in general. There are many moments of silence. We try to put words, we try to explain this silence with words, and sometimes you cannot explain it. You just listen this silence, you enjoy this silence, and take it for your own life.
Do you want to explain something with your work as a pantomime?
Mime for me is pieces of art made with silence. So a sculptor normally takes a piece of clay and with this material he makes a sculpture, he makes something. This is what I do. My material is silence. And I have to say there are many different silences. There is not only one silence. There are silences that are very uncomfortable. We don't like this silence. I mean, when you are in elevator and with somebody in the elevator that you don't know, and you have to be in the elevator for, I don't know, 25 seconds, this silence is so uncomfortable. But it can be an answer that comes too late. You know, to ask a question and then suddenly there is no answer. And this silence of, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds can be really uncomfortable. When you don't get the answer of somebody, it's really uncomfortable. It can be even painful. Some people even punish others with silence. Okay, now I don't talk to you anymore. This silence can be really painful. It can be a silence when somebody forbids you to speak. This happens. There are people that have voices, but they cannot give their opinion. This is a punishment, but also a forbid somebody to speak. So not all the silences are the same. Are silences connected with love and silences connected with hate? So what I have to do in my job is to find the silence that I need for that new piece that I want to show. And this is my job, to find the right silence for the right message or the right story I want to tell.
And now we heard about these different forms of silence and maybe the right form at the right time. You also say that you want to find the limitation of silence. So you walk within the silence, but there are boundaries maybe. But are there?
Yes, silence is very fragile. Imagine that I am performing in silence. My show is normally 1 hour. 1 hour of silence is a lot. But even a child with his crying can break the silence. The silence is very fragile, very soft. So it's very easy to be broken. So my work is to make the silence a little bit stronger, that is almost solid, that the people cannot break it.
How do you do that?
Then you have to add a content. You have to fill the silence with content, with a good message, with a good story, with the stories that come from your own life, with authenticity. This makes the silence stronger and then can resist 1 hour on the stage. Silence is fragile, but you can really make it solid with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your way of thinking, with your culture, with your sufferings, with your experiences, with your problems. This makes silence stronger.
So, but you never use words, so you don't go to the stage and say, so now audience, 1 hour, silence please, I start to play. You never speak when you wear your white mask.
Yeah, no, never. I mean, of course, if the police comes during the performance and asks me to speak, of course I have to speak. But no, normally the makeup is the microphone of the silence. If you have a microphone for words, you are expected to speak. But when you have a microphone for silence, you are expected to be in silence. If you don't speak to a microphone, it's so strange. It's the same if you speak to the microphone of the voice, of the silence. If you speak with the makeup, is something that is not fitting, it's not connected. No, when I have the makeup, I always think that in that moment, the voice went away, and now it's my body, my expressions, my gestures. They are the ones who have the voice now.
Is there a special point where you know yourself, okay, now I stop speaking before the play?
Yeah, the dressing room. The dressing room is the place where I have to change from my voice to my silence. In the dressing room, I need 1 hour to put the makeup. It's really a process where I call the suicide of the voice. Is where the voice is getting killed, is going away to give space, to give the place to my silence. This process, this moment in the dressing room is so special, so important for the actor and for the public. The public, they also have their own dressing room. I don't know, but when the people go to the theater, before they sit down and the show starts, they have to buy the ticket, they have to have the hand program, they have to leave the jacket, they have to find the seat, they have to read something, they are waiting. Since the moment they enter in the theater until the moment they see the performance, it can be 15, 20 minutes of preparing themselves to this hour of silence. So silence needs this kind of preparation for understanding each other in this communication of silence.
And are the people wondering when they see you talking after the show? What you do sometimes?
Yes, yes. Some people really like this moment because after 1 hour of silence, to hear me speaking is like a miracle. It's like, it's impossible. It's, some people think that you should speak more. I said, yeah, but the power of the speaking at the end, the power is due to the hour I was in silence. I think silence can help us to speak better.
To focus, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you say, or what you explain, that you give a lot of your feelings and impressions to the people. Do you get something back in this hour of silence?
Yeah, you also can hear very different silences. You know, the people are able to communicate also in silence with me. They, when I see their faces with big eyes, you know, or their faces with their mouth open, because they are really into the story, their silence is really an applause. It's like a clapping. Sometimes I can hear their brain clapping, you know, this understanding what is happening on the stage. When you are listening music, you still could turn your head to the left or the right, and you still can hear. But when you watch a show of mime, you cannot turn to the left or the right. You have to be concentrated. And this silence of concentration is really a clapping, really an applause. Of course, thanks that they don't give me only silence. I'm so happy that they also laugh, they also clap. So there are many ways, even they speak.
But you give something and you receive from them.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
yes.
perfect.
Yeah, for me, this is a dialogue. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation. It's a communication between the public and me. Yeah, yeah.
Carlos, thank you very much for giving an insight into this world of silence and into your work.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Liebe Zuschauer, Sie sehen, die Stille ist keineswegs langweilig, sondern kann ein Raum für neue Ideen und Gedanken sein. Ich wünsche Ihnen, dass Sie sich auch von der Stille finden lassen. Bis zum nächsten Mal bei Nachgefragt.